Okay, so we're going to go straight in this webinar. So our first webinar 2 weeks ago was on satisfaction. The second webinar last week was on member engagement, and we are going to go into communication. And we have the very experienced social bee with us today. We have Simon, who has been working with RYA over the past few years at a national, regional and club level. Some of you may recognise him from previous webinars. Basically, Simon has also been working 12 years at Sport England in a communication and marketing role. So I'm actually quite excited to hear all what Simon has to say. We will then go on and hear from Stephen, who is a case study from one of the clubs here in Northern Ireland. And also we have in our team, our RYA team, we have Rob and Vicky. Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be with you tonight, and thank you for taking the time to come onto this webinar. Just to say what we'll be doing in a very short space of time, I should say. We'll be having a look at some of the communication methods available to us. We'll have a look at how we approach our different audiences within our membership. A great question here. We'll be having a look at how do we encourage those who are not tech savvy or reluctant to use tech. The importance as well, especially at this time, I'll come on to this in a few minutes, about the importance of communicating value back to our members, especially at a time where we might be looking at renewals potentially in January. And on that, what are we sending ahead of member renewals to keep them interested, to keep them keen on coming back to the clubs that we represent? And then very briefly at the end, we'll share just some ideas on how to measure the success of your communications and marketing. And I want to give some time for Stephen, because Stephen's got some great experience of what they're doing at his club at the end for you as well. So, Rob.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Simon. And I think we're going to pose a number of questions to you as we go through the next kind of half an hour or so. And really, I think it needs to start with the basics, and that is all the different types of communication that are available to the club. So do you think you could give us a quick summary of that?
Yeah, so it'd be great if you can put in the chat, what are you actually using at this moment in time to communicate to your members? What channels are you using? It could be digital, it could be social, it could be snail mail or notice boards. What are you actually using to communicate to your members? So it'd be great to put those in the chat. And just to say that one of the things I really enjoy about working with sailing clubs is I don't have all the answers. You guys are at the coalface, and you're working innovatively to connect with your members and to promote your clubs. And I'm discovering some great new tools, some great new uses for tools I hadn't considered before. So things like Shoutbox, West Pennine Windsurfing Club. I've never come across that before until the last couple of weeks. It's a service they put on their website where all their members chat about what's going on and whether a club night's happening or whether it's not, and they know they can go straight to their website. So it'd be great to just put those on the chat, and let's see what you've got. Is anything there yet?
Not just yet, no. So we've got far less people in the audience this evening than we did have this afternoon. But anyone who is in the audience, if you use the question box to put any of the ways that you are currently communicating with your members, and we'll pass those to Simon and get his kind of thoughts on them, I guess. So if anybody wants to stick those in the question box, we've got some popping up now.
That'd be great.
So Mike,
sorry, go on.
That's okay. Mike Heap has said they're using email, text, and Facebook.
Great, thanks, Mike. Be great to know if anyone else is using anything different. But let's carry on. Keep on putting those in the chat. It'd be nice to know what you're using. The thing I'd say about member communications, the member comes first. The communications come second. We focus on the member first and foremost. So around the member, we have a whole bunch of communication methods. Rob, do you want to flick onto the next slide for me, please? And here are some which might resonate with you. They might be things that you're using. I'll be talking about it later. I don't want this to become an exercise in bad marketing. Bad marketing is what I call a tick box exercise. It's getting your marketing materials out there. Well, we've done our communications as a committee. We've sent some emails, or we've done our communications as a section in our club. We've put some stuff on the website. No, communication, successful communication and marketing has to hit the target. Has to go to the person you're aiming it at. So sadly, there's no silver bullets either. I think with digital marketing, everyone thought, great, everyone's going to be on Facebook or everyone's going to be on WhatsApp. That hasn't happened. Lots of people are on these different platforms, but we have to just bear in mind, where are our members hanging out? What do they use on a regular basis? How can I reach them? What channels can I use to connect with them?
Yes,
Any
Simon,
thoughts?
we've got a few other people that have put on some other ways now as well, actually. So we've got Facebook and MailChimp, as well as emails and website, and then TeamApp, as well as Instagram and Twitter, and even some YouTube from one of the clubs. So
wow, okay, that's awesome.
I guess kind of.
Sorry, Rob? What was it Emac? Someone said, or
TeamApp?
Oh, TeamApp, brilliant. Yeah, I've heard of TeamApp. Sorry, I didn't hear you properly.
So I guess the question really is, how do they approach those different audiences, and which of those work, and is there any kind of strategy to that?
Yeah, so what works for one club won't work for another club, but having said that, it is great to share what we're using. It is great to learn from each other, and just to encourage one another to explore alternative methods. And within our club, it's not one audience we're talking to. We have different sections, we have different demographics, we have different interests, we have different things which are going to be the focus of our audience at this moment in time. So it's important that we review our audiences, especially our members. Have we got the same consistency of members that we did last year or the year before? Sometimes our communication channels need to change and adapt and evolve as we get new members. I heard of one club that was reaching out to its members under lockdown through TikTok. Now, TikTok might be a platform that might scare you, but a lot of young people were getting on TikTok during lockdown just to connect with their friends, and the club in question said, actually, we're going to get on TikTok because we know our young people are there, and we want to connect with them and talk to them about what the club is doing. So you might have to change and adapt and evolve the channels which become more popular than others with your different parts of your audience. And what I'd like to say as well is, if you're announcing something, if you're, I was going to say broadcast, but I really hate that word. If you're about to broadcast something, don't. Speak to one, not the many. What do I mean by that? Well, great communicators don't speak to a whole group of people. So I was about to class myself as a great communicator. I don't think I'm at all. But I'm aware there's a bunch of you on tonight. But I'm thinking of one person from a club that I've worked with recently, and I've got him in my mind, and I'm trying to communicate to him. If I can communicate to him, I know I can successfully communicate to all of you. So it might be worth thinking about that cadet, that social club member, that racer. Who are you trying to connect to? Who are you trying to communicate with? Make it all about them as well. Clubs do this from time to time, but in business and organizations and business will talk about themselves and wonder why nobody connects with their content, whether that's on a notice board, a newsletter, whether that's in an email or on a social media channel or website. Always make it about your audience. Put yourself in their shoes. What's important to them at this moment in time, and appeal to their wants, not their needs. Think about what do they want at this moment in time, rather than actually what they need. You know what they need as part of your club membership. You know they need to know about water safety and other bits as well. But think about what, at this moment in time, what do they want? And it could be something simple, thinking of where we are and the season we're in, but actually they want connection. They want to be social with people, maybe at a distance, maybe through a quiz night or something like that. I know lots of you are running those sort of Zoom type activities at the moment, but think about what they want at this moment in time as well.
So I think you've given some really great examples of tech and how to communicate with that one member, and quite often we've been talking about some of the younger members, and I think one of the massive successes through lockdown was e-sailing, and we saw massive club engagement through e-sailing, and it was supported very often by WhatsApp chat groups or potentially even Zoom calls happening at the same time as e-sailing. But I think that potentially has the opportunity to miss out a large group of club members who might not see themselves as able to connect with tech, and it potentially could even alienate those members. So how do you think we should encourage, or how should clubs look to encourage those reluctant tech members?
I think the key word there is encourage. So I'm aware, on a call I did with the Sailability Club earlier this week, the overarching message to me is, Simon, we're Luddites. We are no good at tech. We know you love digital, but we want to talk about other things as well as digital. That's not a problem at all. But I think I suddenly was caught myself, and I said, hang on a minute. Have you, this time last year, had you ever used Zoom before? And there was this sort of shaking of heads around the Zoom screen. And I said, well, actually, using Zoom is an achievement. You have used a platform which is now widely in use around the globe. It's the leading video conferencing platform, and you're using it well. You didn't have to ring me up and say, hey, Simon, how do we log on to this? Simon, how do we unmute? Simon, how do we start my video? You're using it well. So sometimes we talk ourselves down. We say, this is for young people. I'm never going to get a handle of this. And strangely enough, Rob, as we finished the call this afternoon, my mother-in-law, who I'd forwarded a message on WhatsApp from someone on email, replied to that person thinking she was replying to that person on email, and it wasn't. It was replying to me. And I thought, oh goodness, that's what we've just been talking about, not being tech savvy. And I thought, hang on a minute, she wasn't using WhatsApp 3 months ago. She's really flying with it. And then a message came through, sorry, Simon, I realised I've just messaged you and not the person. I'll email them. And I thought, that's brilliant. She's problem solving as well. So building up confidence on these platforms, especially we've got the chance, maybe not activities not happening, is a good thing to do. Having said that, there will be people in our club who will never get on digital. They might not even ever use email. They might not even use a smartphone. So what I'd say is one size definitely does not fit all. So really think about your membership. And as I said at the start, move away from the tick list marketing. Just because it's on Facebook doesn't mean everyone's seen it. Just because you've emailed it doesn't mean everyone's seen it. Someone shared on the earlier call that they had a 50% open rate, which is actually very high for an email campaign, to be honest. But that means 50% of the people in the club who are on that list haven't seen what's happening at the club. So you have to use what's known as a marketing mix, a mix of different platforms, different technologies to actually reach that audience. Good question is actually, do you know the best channels for your members? Are we guessing, or have you actually done a survey? And it could be snail mail. I haven't heard that phrase until today for a long time. It could even be picking up the phone. Works really well for some of your members, because that's the way they communicate. That's the way they engage with their peers and with their connections.
Yeah, we had some clubs who were actually phoning their members at the start of lockdown and ringing their members that they didn't think would otherwise be able to be contacted, and especially some of the members who they knew might be vulnerable. So I think you're dead right, Simon, that those phone calls can make a power of difference, and that shouldn't be underestimated amongst all of this other fantastic tech and ways of communicating that we have got. Interesting that you talk about surveying as well, because we've all the way through, you might not have seen the last two workshops, but the last two Wednesdays as well, we've talked about asking your members what makes them feel satisfied in week 1, what would they like to be engaged in week 2, and now we're talking about asking them about what can we do to make our communications to you better, and I think that's really interesting. And one of the case studies we had on last week, Tony from Lymington Town Sailing Club, and he talked about they survey their their members all the time, but they survey them on maybe 3 questions, so that it takes the member no longer than 90 seconds to answer the survey, so that it's not this long-winded process. It's just really quick. How do you feel about the communications this month? Or is there, if you could have to pick one of these, which would increase your engagement? So just really short, sharp surveying. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that that's come up in this week again. You know, it's fantastic to see that trend all the way through. And through those last 2 weeks, we've also looked at, you know, lots of satisfaction and engagement ideas. There are huge amounts of case studies on looking at those. Some of those can kind of fall on deaf ears, and only the people that were involved will know about them. So how should a club communicate all of that value back to its members?
Well, I wanted to put this into context. So we've just been, well, I was going to say probably, well, I was going to say probably, no, the hardest year on record for most clubs, I would say, and for most people. So actually, how do we demonstrate value? How do we communicate value, especially at this time of year? We could be having, as I said, January, all the renewals coming through. So how can we communicate when we haven't been that active, to be honest? I think impact is still quite a key element. So I was looking at Horizons Plymouth website yesterday, and one of the things I love what they do is they talk about the number of hours that they've had on the water, the number of sessions, the number of young people that they've taken out on the water. Obviously that's changed significantly this year. They still have had activity, but it's nowhere near as big as last year, say for example. But talking about our impact in the community, our impact that we have with you know, young sailors coming through into racing or into coaching or whatever pathway they're going through. I think the other thing that I love about communications, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is the whole thing about customer voice. So we're in this age where we believe complete strangers of where we buy things, because it feels more authentic, more real than the club saying, for example, renew your membership. If we can get those great membership stories back out to our members in the run-up to renewal, that could be very, very, very powerful. Another tactic could be something I picked up in a book recently called "You Said We Did." So if your club is surveying needs of members and wants of members, and you're achieving on that, it's great to report back on that. And Rob, you had a great example up in Cumbria that you shared with me last week. Do you want to just quickly talk about?
Yeah, so in that satisfaction week, the first week where we looked at, you know, what makes a satisfied member, and the club had talked to their membership about what they wanted and how, you know, how satisfied were they, and there were a lot of members that voiced actually that the social afterwards could be better. And I think a lot of people started floating this idea of having hot tubs at their club, and before you know it, they were renting in hot tubs, you know, for sessions to sit outside the club. And at the end of racing, there are people sat having a beer in a hot tub, and while the kids were on the water training during the day, the parents were sat there. And I think that's a prime example of You Said We Did. You know, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but if there's a number of people asking for it and then you provide it, you've instantly achieved that satisfaction, haven't you? Yeah, so it's really great.
So those are three: impact, customer voice, and You Said We Did. The last one I just want to briefly mention is the Stockdale paradox. Some of you might have heard this before, especially under the pandemic situation we're in at the moment. Jim Stockdale was an American prisoner of war in Asia during the Second World War, and he survived the camps there. And when they asked him why did you survive, his answer is actually here: I never lost faith in the end of the story. And the end of our story as clubs is we don't know when we're going to be fully up and running. We don't know when we can open our doors fully or have, you know, the range of activities that we're able to provide normally. But we know that day's coming. We can't put a date on it at this moment. We know we'll be back. And that was Jim Stockdale's sort of sense when he went into the concentration camp. He saw people who were incredibly optimistic that died very quickly because they would say, right, we're going to be back to normal. We're going to be getting out of here by Christmas. We're getting out of here by Easter. We'll be getting out here by next week. And what he did was he actually confronted the brutal truths of his reality. And that's what we need to do with members. We need to hold our hands up. They're aware of the situation. It's a global pandemic, for goodness sake. So they're aware that we haven't been able to operate. And we don't need to gloss over that. We don't need to hide that. But likewise, we shouldn't be making promises that we can't keep about when the fullness of activity and the range of activities are going to be restarting. So just some ideas on actually what to say this year. Let's talk about customer voice in a bit more detail. The influence of communications has actually changed over the years. So way back, probably like 15, 20 years ago, before social media, before the web was a major player in our communications, we used to believe in elders, leaders, and experts. We had faith in what was coming out, or a bit of faith. Some of us are very cynical anyway. We had a bit of faith in what was coming out from the centre. Social media and other elements as well has changed that completely. So we now believe friends and family, which is why an open day is fantastic. If people are experiencing sailing for the first time, they're going to tell their friends and family, by the way. It's just a quick aside. The one in the middle is crucial on the right-hand side here. People like me. We believe complete strangers for where we go on holiday. Well, hopefully we'll do soon on TripAdvisor, for example, where we purchase things on Amazon reviews, and where we buy other things on Trustpilot and Revu and other things. We look at the reviews. They're people like us, and we spend our money based on what these people are saying. And I just wanted to share two thoughts with you. In the pink here on the left-hand side is what a lot of clubs say on their website. We're a friendly, welcoming club. Now, bearing in mind that model, I'm going to be very cynical. Yes, you would say that. You want me to cough up my membership and become a part of you. You would say that, and I think every club I've come across has something similar to that end on their website. Now, clubs are also being reviewed on Google, a Google review. So if you type in your club name, on the side, if you're on a desktop, it will come up in a panel with a map and a few photos and a bit of information about your club, and then there's probably a review there as well. And I got this from a club. I won't name it. I don't embarrass them. I don't think they're on the call tonight, so I'm probably safe, but I don't want to risk it. I love this. The most welcoming feeling of any yacht club I have ever visited around the world. This is home where I can spend time on and off the water with like-minded enthusiasts. And I should say that was one I picked out of 30, 40. I could have used any of the others as well. This is the customer voice. This is the member voice that we need to start putting back to our members, just to remind them of who we are and what we do. And I love the fact this person says this is home, because one of the privileges I've had with working with the RYA over the last couple of years is actually visiting sailing clubs. And you are family to your members. You really are. You might not realize it from time to time when rubbish happens and situations happen, but you are family. It's where people meet their friends. It's where people feel wanted. It's where people feel they belong and they can thrive. So putting something of that back out to your audience before renewal would be a great thing to do, especially if you can capture that member voice to put back out.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it there, Simon. You know, we're coming up to renewals period, and last week we looked at the kind of proportion of the country that will be renewing between January and April, and it's colossal. It's absolutely colossal. So over half will be renewing in that period. And in fact, I think there's 450 of something like 1,200 clubs that are going to be doing it in January alone. So it's huge numbers, and that message that goes out is going to be crucial, isn't it? I mean, just to send the invoice is not going to be a great move, and we need some carrot as well as stick. So, you know, what should they be sending, and what should be happening in the run up to those renewals?
So I think what I've seen as great practice from clubs all around the country is just them being aware of where their audience is at the moment. So some clubs aren't posting on social media or updating their websites at the moment because because they haven't got capacity, and that's fine. That's not a problem at this moment at all. We do need to be on our game, especially if we've got renewals in January. And with any member, they're at a certain stage. So I'm aware for a number of clubs, some members we probably haven't seen for 12 months, maybe even longer. They're back at the top here on this chart. They're back at the awareness. It's almost like they're having to sort of purchase again. If they were going through a purchasing cycle, we need to make them aware of the club and what we do and what we've been doing in their absence. They get led through an evaluation process where they will consider and then make a decision based on the kind of things that you're putting out, the kind of information that you are sharing, the kind of marketing that you're doing. And then once they join, this is the really nice place that I would say we can start capturing through surveys and the like some of those really great quotes like I showed you earlier. But don't forget, people will put quotes on things like Google reviews anyway, and we can push those back out to members who are now umming and ahhing about whether they should rejoin. And Rob, you shared with me a stat about when people are thinking of rejoining, which might help clubs who are in that cycle at the moment with January looming.
Yeah, so in the satisfaction survey that Vicky talked about in week 1, there was a definite sign of people's satisfaction dropping off in the kind of 2nd and 3rd year of their membership of a club. So that first year they've got the buzz there, they really want to get in there. But then 2nd and 3rd year, if they don't feel integrated or engaged or satisfied, you know, and the club meeting their expectations, that's when satisfaction drops. Now, we don't have specific stats about renewal at that point, but we must presume that if their satisfaction's dropping at the level that the survey showed, that is going to be an issue for renewals at that point. So yeah, year 2 and 3 for members is crucial.
So that is a big marketing challenge in itself, and just reminded me of a story that I haven't shared. But I used to be a member of a gym up the road. It used to be, I think it's Pure Gym now, but it's it used to be LA Fitness when I went there. And I remembered when their renewals were up, and it used to be, there was a month where lots of people's renewals were due. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was this might have been the start of the year thinking about it. All the staff were encouraged to chat to the members. And I remember being at reception, handing my card so they could scan it, and the receptionist took it and went, "Hello, Simon, read it off my card. How are you today?" And I thought, I've been coming here 3 years, and you had to read my card, and I've dealt with you every time. You've obviously on a membership drive. We can't do that to our members. We can't be that blatant. It can't be, as you said, an invoice just coming through and expect them to sign it. We need to reach out through some of the methodologies, some of the ideas I've shared around impact, around customer voice, back to these members who are thinking whether to renew as well, to make sure they do. And just to share some thoughts on some of the content I've seen. I should say this is social content because it's the easiest to get to because it's on the web. Queen Mary Sailing Club from, I think it was the year before last. I really love this. Join in and get the winter on us. They know their membership. They know when their members aren't thinking at all about paying membership. Here's an offer. What's in it for me? Really nice. I'm going to get winter weather. That I haven't checked with the club actually whether that was 3 months or 6 months. Probably 3, I would say, or maybe just the Christmas period, to make sure people are renewing with them. And then that's a bit more sort of direct. But what about the subtle stuff? Well, I love what clubs have been doing. Some of the challenges they've been running on their social media platforms, some of the quizzes and other things just to engage people during this really difficult time. Royal Corinthian Club in Burnham-on-Crouch, they've done this amazing photography over a period of time where they know their members are desperate to get back on the water. So hang on, why not share photos of what it looks like? There was a great video on Twitter I saw, which was a storm coming over from the land, and it was almost like saying, would you sail in this with this storm coming from the land coming out to sea? Would you be prepared? And it was just the photos and the videos were just so engaging, just reminding you of where you want to be, your happy place, getting back out on the water and getting into the club and meeting friends and you know, family and the like from your sailing club.
And we've seen loads of good examples of that through lockdown, but I think in run up to renewals, it possibly wouldn't have happened before in the past, and it is important that clubs kind of take what they've learned through the horrendous year that we have had and put it into play for the renewals as they come up next year, and really continue that fantastic work.
So that's true. So true. I was talking to one club the week before last that said they were going to do a video series. They're a very small club, and they said we're going to be preparing the fleet for you know, coming back to activity in April. And what we'll do, we'll create a video series, and we'll talk to our audience. Remember, talk to the one, talk down the lens to the one if you're going to do video especially, and we'll have that conversation about what we're preparing, why we're preparing, what sort of activity we'll have on these different boats, and how's it going. We'll video diary. That's great. That's really entertaining for your members to know what you're doing when the doors are closed.
So we've talked about loads of really good ways to engage with our members, different ways depending on where they're at in the club, what type of media they might respond to. But how are we going to measure the success of this going through the year and in run up to renewals as well?
Well, I suppose the big objective is going to be around the satisfaction survey, or if you're going to be using member communications to retain people and increase your membership, has your communications, your marketing actually achieved that? That would be your objective. There are other things you can measure as well. So, you know, the health of your email list growing, your Facebook or Instagram page growing as well. Actually, who's on them? What sort of demographics make up the people? You can get those in the analytics of your social media channels, for example. And then something I'd really like is if you're using, we'll stick to digital at the moment rather than think about the wider snail mail and phones and that sort of stuff. But if you're using social media, WhatsApp, other bits as well, even your email, hopefully you're bringing traffic back to your website where they can find out more about what's going on. Or if it's a renewal that you're looking for, they can come through to the landing page for your renewals and hopefully renew on your website as well. You can measure that. And every time someone renews, that's a conversion, and you can have that end-to-end from your post or your email newsletter right through to the conversion. You can actually measure that, which is really nice to be able to do in digital. And
great stuff, thank you. And then I think there's a bit of an additional tool that people could be using as well.
So it's great you saying that, and you're thinking, great, well, how do I do that? So two things just to mention quite briefly. One would be something called Bitly, bit.ly. So you can create shortened links in Bitly, it's a link shortener. But if you log in via Twitter or Facebook or set up an account via email, you can actually start tracking the clicks on your link. It's great for emails. It's great for social media posts as well. So you know how many people have clicked on that link and come back to the page that you want to take them to on your website, for example. Or you could even be taken to an Eventbrite. I know lots of clubs use Eventbrite for different events throughout the year. So it doesn't have to be your website, but you're trying to measure how many click-throughs from our content. If you wanted to as well, to get a bit more information, so Bitly will tell you where they've come from, email, Facebook, direct, and where in the world, UK or elsewhere, they've come in from. It doesn't go down to regional or county or town level. You could use something called the Campaign URL Builder or Google URL Builder, which is completely free, and you could put some information about the landing page you're bringing people back to. Say it's the membership sign-up form. You're promoting on Facebook, so you put in campaign source, social or Facebook in there, campaign medium, probably Facebook, and it will give you a link where you can actually track that back on your website, especially if you're using something called Google Analytics. I know that's a lot of information to take in at the end of the session, but just to give you a flavour of what you can do, I'd say start with Bitly. Start with Bitly and see how many click-throughs you're getting, and then take it on from there as you feel confident.
So Simon, we've just had a question come up in the box as to what the tool is. So could you just repeat the name of the tool that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's bit.ly So if you type that into a browser, bit.ly, and as I said, it's a link shortener, so it will shorten website links for you to share. But if you sign in with a Facebook account or a Twitter account, or even make an account with an email address, you will get all this sort of rich data. Once you create a link using it, it's a shortened link, you can track how many people have clicked through on that link and where they are and what they click from as well.
And those shortened links, they're the sort of thing that you see in an email where it says click here, and you click the here word rather than a long link. That's correct, isn't it?
Not quite. A bit.ly link could be behind that, but you tend to see them more on social posts. So you will see explore more here, and then you'll see a link, and rather than the website, you might, oh, there's bit.ly/, and then there might be a name there, or it might be some random letters or numbers. I should say that the benefit of getting a bit.ly account is you can customize the back end, i.e. everything from the backslash from bit.ly. So you could have bit.ly/South Devon membership or something like that to take them through to your membership page. So it's really nice to be able to customize that as well, because some people will not click on random letters and numbers that they see on the screen. They think it looks a bit spammy. So customizing that back end of the link is a good thing to do.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Well, Simon, we're going to give you a break now because we've grilled you for a little while, and we're going to have a look at a case study with Lisa and Stephen. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so obviously the past few weeks we have been giving you case studies and stories about clubs and people involved in doing kind of what we're suggesting to do and how they've done it well. One club here in Northern Ireland, East Antrim Boat Club, have kind of embraced modern communications. So I'd like to introduce Stephen from East Antrim. Stephen, you were one of the finalists for RYA Yacht and Yachting Club of the Year last year, but you received special recognition for embracing modern communications. Tell us how you put your members first.
Well, that's a big question. The key thing for members is communication and accuracy of data. So we spent a bit of time there getting information assembled there and targeting our membership as well. Say, for example, there are juniors. The seniors don't need to have information when training's on for juniors. So with software there, we were able to do some demographic work and pull out the information, say, for the juniors. And that meant we could focus and target the information specifically to them when the training sessions were going on, the agenda for training, and also for the seniors when the socials were on, relevant to them. So that was a big benefit there for our membership. Yeah.
And why the change? Like, what were the problems that you were trying to address, or not necessarily problems, but just kind of?
The big issue was that all our membership was all managed on an Excel database, which involved mindless mail merges, produced printed letters and posted out and everything. So the committee eventually made a decision that we'll try and have a system where we can email most of the communication out directly to the members in a focused manner. And that was the key thing driving us forward, because you're only as good as your last piece of information to them, because people tend to forget things very quickly. So we needed focused, targeted information going out to them, be it on Facebook, Twitter, or email, and even the notice boards. So everything had to be coordinated there with the messages that were going out. So there was a unity there throughout the whole system and consistency of message there through to our members.
Yeah, and I think that message, the message content is key, because obviously there's a lot of scrolling involved in terms of Facebook and that. But with the work involved, I understand there was a bit of effort, huge bit of effort from you volunteers like yourselves. Would you say it was worth it?
Without a doubt, there really made big benefits there into how we communicate with members. We've even brought people in who didn't use email back into the system, and we've actually run the odd session there where we've shown people how to connect to various things just on a low-key basis. There's a major benefit there. There's a lot of hard work involved in getting an up-to-date database. We had big problem was we had an Excel database that was out of date. So we approached it very simply, and we did it by paper initially, and we badgered everybody to fill in a up-to-date membership information form, so we could get really accurate information there. And that involved dates of birth, so we could target a demographic, preferred email contact, and out of the whole membership, we only had 6 members who preferred snail mail, which is quite telling. But
Yeah, I think, sorry, go ahead.
The database there took several winter evenings there with and maybe 10 an evening there to update and then upload the data into the software we're using. And it works really, really well. And as a communication tool, it's fast, it's reliable, and it's also analytics as well, so that we can ring people up and say, well, we're sending you emails, but you're not opening them. Why is that?
And I think that's something that we learned in the very first webinar that we ran on member satisfaction, was that little efforts, no matter how small or how big, are rewarded through member satisfaction. So we know that doing all this obviously benefited you and the volunteers and the committee, whoever's behind the kind of running of it. Do you think it has benefited your members as well?
Without a doubt, because we can respond very quickly. If, for example, in this current COVID situation, in Northern Ireland, the club was open, the club was closed. Information was able to be sent out very rapidly to members to tell them exactly what the current status was, and if there were any things going on in the club, they had the risk assessment and the procedures there very, very rapidly. And so it worked quite well.
Brilliant. And lastly, would you recommend it to other clubs to put the work in to do it?
I certainly would, because once you have the system up and running, we're able to do all our invoicing, billing, communications, monitoring of who has trophies, polls, everything there on the same platform. And if people email me afterwards there, I can give them details, but I'll not promote one system over another. And it's a major benefit. All your information's there in for your committee as well. So we have separate access there for committee. Any minutes are posted, documents, policies are all in a central repository. And the other thing is, if you have a change of officer, say your secretary, the information from previous correspondence is still there. So the big problem with small clubs is that there tends to be one person there that has the keys to everything, who knows everything. And for example, any say insurance documents are scanned, placed up into the document repository, and that means then any committee member there can get access to them for the club. Because problem is a lot of clubs are fall into the trap of not being able to share their information, and be that a policy or a risk assessment, they're all there and they're available there for all committee members, so they can disseminate them as well. So it's a major benefit.
Stephen, thank you so much for all that. It was fantastic. And again, I am sure everyone is kind of scribbling down notes. I'm going to bring back Rob and Simon for any questions. While people are typing in their questions, I am just going to do a quick recap on the last 3 weeks that we have had. So the first week we looked at satisfaction, member satisfaction. We remember Rachel talked about doing best is what matters most, and as well as the small efforts kind of have the big rewards, and also be willing to listen to what your members want. So there was a hot tub story. I will allow you to go back and watch it when you have the chance. Very interesting. Second week we looked at engagement. Obviously we know membership renewals, most of our clubs are coming up in January. So again, it's kind of looking at that engagement and how do we engage with our members. We heard from a relatively new member that she just wanted communication. Lara just wanted to know what's happening with the club. And we also heard from Steve and Sue, who kind of adapted their racing for their members. So again, doing things for their members, and also planning for a normal future from Gordon to keeping volunteers and members engaged. And then obviously that all wrapped up and kind of brought it quite well together in terms of communication. We know communication is key, like Simon described today. Different ways of communicating to that one person, and again, one size doesn't fit all, so it's listening to your members on what type of communication they want. Any questions?
No, we haven't got any questions up at the moment. So I guess that leaves it for us to say thanks to everybody for this evening, for their time. Simon, Stephen, and obviously the team, Vicky and Lisa. It's been a really interesting set of 3 webinars for us to put together. I think we've enjoyed doing it, and hopefully you will gain something from it. Vicky has just put in the chat to everybody the link if you want to be able to look at the previous YouTube videos from the previous weeks to catch up, or if you want to share any of those with your committee members. So that's all possible for you. And with that, I think we'll probably, yeah, they're all going in now, so you'll be able to catch those on the catch up as well. So hopefully that's it for everybody. If there are any questions you want to stay behind, please feel free to do that. But if not, we'll finish for this evening and say good night to you all. Thank you very much. Right.
I think Mike has his hand up.
Sorry?
I think Mike has his hand up. Mike Heap.
Oh, does he? Okay, cool. Hang on.
When that went, because I'm not very good at spotting those.
Mike. There are only 6 people, so I'm going to take the risk and unmute everybody. There we go. How can I do that? That button there. No, I don't think it's going to let me unmute everybody, or anybody, in fact. Mike, if you've got a question, you might want to type it into the chat. Might be the easiest way to go.
Oh, he says, sorry, didn't mean to. Did you see that in the questions?
I've been talking to a muted microphone. That's cool.
Oh no.
See you later. Thanks, guys.